Good afternoon, everybody. This is Adrienne Montgomery with ERP VAR. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We're going to be talking about Sage 100 Cloud, how to optimize procurement, production management, and payments, the 3 Ps. I'm so pleased to be joined today by Vracus Blum, Fraction, and APS Payments. Just a little bit about the speakers here. We have Stacy Schultz, Director of Sales and Alliances over at Vracus Blum. She'll be presenting the Sage Manufacturing Production Management workflow today. We have Scott Pape, VP of Strategic Relations over at Fraction, formerly known as eRequester, and Patty Benitez, Senior Vice President of Channel Sales over at APS Payments. A little bit about the companies here. Vracus Blum Computer Consulting, it has been the #1 selling Sage 100 Cloud manufacturing job ops provider for over 20 years. They're the all-time job ops Sage 100 Cloud manufacturing leader. They've been implementing Sage products for over 25 years, and they're one of the top Sage resellers in the Midwest region, servicing Sage 100 Cloud. And Fraction is a trusted and proven requisition, purchase order, and expense management automation solution. They're a horizontal solution, and they're designed to simplify the spend management process. They allow administrators and accounting to control what they need to comply and boost efficiency. And APS Payments offers flexible and integrated payment solutions for every business. They're a full-service merchant services provider, and they're trusted by thousands of merchants daily to process payments. And they provide very low credit card processing rates, and they reduce risk. And they, through level 3 credit card processing, business-to-business credit card processing, they can get you the best rates because they take all that data in Sage 100 Cloud and serve it up to the credit card processing providers to take away all that risk and get the best rate. They also offer click-to-pay for Sage 100 Cloud, and they also integrate with several other ERPs. And then a little bit about the workflow here. We're going to be talking about how an order comes into Sage 100 Cloud, and Fraction works with Sage 100 Cloud to automate that spend management with purchase orders in conjunction with production management. And APS will automate the payments, integrated payments with Sage 100 to get the lowest credit card processing rate. So we're going to kick it off here with Scott and talking about purchase order automation. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you very much, Adrienne. I appreciate it. I appreciate everyone else joining today as well. Today, of course, we're on a Thursday, late August. Thank you again for taking the time. Our company Fraction has a spend management solution that provides for better efficiency and control over the purchasing automation and spending processes. So what I'll do is just kick it off with a brief PowerPoint, super brief, and then just jump right on into the solution to give you an overview. The solution itself provides companies with better visibility and control, as well as efficiencies over purchasing and spending, so companies can garner pre-approval before spend is done, before purchases are made. You can do purchase requisitions, approval workflow, you can tag to a job ops work ticket, and it can ultimately generate POs into the Sage 100C purchasing module to create purchase orders that have been approved. There's other great features in the system for flexible approval. You can also do receiving and potentially invoices as well. And we've been a Sage Gold certified development partner for almost 20 years. Our company, Fraction, recently merged with eRequester, so we joined forces to provide small and mid-sized businesses with a great suite of solutions to control spending, which is a key component of any company's needs to reduce operating costs and save time and money in connection with purchasing. Our solution has over 850 customers worldwide, tens of thousands of end users on the platform, very much across industry solution. Different companies across a wide range of verticals utilize our solution to provide better automation over purchasing and spending. And particularly if you're using Sage 100 as your accounting system, your ERP solution, it's going to provide the great integration with Sage 100 as well. While we have lots of different customers who can provide references when the time is right, today I'm going to focus on the basics of request to PO processes. So before you buy something, you may need to get it approved. People can initiate requests in the solution, get them approved, and generate purchase orders. So speeding up that process can save a company tons of time and money, eliminating a lot of the challenges clients have with paper-based processes, alleviating bottlenecks, better insights into how much money you have left against your budgets, reducing maverick spending. So there's lots of challenges that the system is intended to address. Among the features of the solution, the benefits are the nice web-based, browser-based interface for making requests to buy or to spend money, getting them routed through a nice approval workflow based on dollar levels or other parameters, notifying relevant people when they have to take action, better compliance with auditing protocols, visibility so people know the status of their transactions, collaboration so people can communicate with one another about the details and statuses of their purchase requests, and ultimately saving time and money by eliminating redundant data entry. And this typically does achieve a great return on investment for clients that utilize the solution. Our Fraction E solution, Fraction E is kind of short for Fraction E Requester, and we have modules available for scalability, including purchase requisitions, mobile and email approvals so people can approve on the go, POs that can be integrated with Sage 100's purchase order module. Some clients don't use purchase orders in Sage, and we can also bypass POs in Sage and feed them over to the accounts payable module to eliminate the invoice entry components. There's also other available options in the system. Today I'm going to focus primarily on the rec to PO processes, but welcome anyone having input or questions or comments about other areas of the solution to improve their spend management processes. With that said, what I'll do is pull up my actual system now to give you a brief tour, and that is where I have navigated with my web browser. I've pulled up my login screen, and when you log into the system, you have multi-company options if you do have multiple companies. A user can be given rights and permissions, so he or she can be provided with certain access. I've logged in as a gentleman named Joe. This guy named Joe Requester. He's somebody who, in this particular company, needs to buy stuff, and before he's technically allowed to do so, he needs to ask for permission, and if it's within his authority, it'll be approved, and if it's not within his authority, it'll need to be approved. And your company can set up the rules for when approval is required and under what conditions. So Joe here has this dashboard, which includes a number of tabs across the top. He has 8 requisitions or requests in progress that he made. The requests will all have a number for internal tracking purposes. So you can see the number that gets assigned by the system, and that way you never lose track of any requests. Also, there's a friendly name, consulting services, monthly supplies, computer equipment. You could give a title to your request to give it some meaning. We also have this feature for request type. It allows you to categorize different types of requests. So you can distinguish different categories, such as standard operating expenses versus, say, capital expenditures, IT requests, computer related, invoices for utilities. These are just examples. You can set up any number of request types or purchase types, and then you could set up approval workflows. So CapEx gets routed to the finance department, IT goes to the IT department, invoices to the accounting department. And there's really very flexible workflow capabilities for different request types, also based on dollar thresholds or departments or locations or other parameters. The suppliers are also available, the vendors. So every time you add a new vendor inside of Sage 100C, it'll show up here automatically. The same is true with things like general ledger codes and inventory items, or even job work tickets, for example. There's also great visibility into the status of the transaction, so you can see where it is in the process. When you make a request to buy something, it'll initiate in a status of incomplete. Once you submit that request, it'll move into a status of waiting. That means it's waiting for approval. It'll also show you the name of the person who it's waiting on. You could see, for example, the invoice for utilities is waiting for the director, Jane, whereas down below there's a request at the very bottom for office supplies, which is waiting for the manager, Bob. So Joe has great visibility over the status of all of his open requisitions, including who they're waiting on and, of course, how long they've been out there. If you want to see what you have to approve, it'll be in your pending approval queue. You could click on that and see anything waiting for your approval that has been sent to you. You'll also be given an email notification. You can even approve from the email without logging in. Once a requisition to purchase is approved, it goes into the Create PO queue, where you can create purchase orders for all of the approved purchase requests that you have the rights to generate. And this guy, Joe, happens to have one requisition here for monthly supplies that from the operations department that got approved on August 29th that he can convert to a PO at his convenience. Once the PO gets cut, if you're using Sage 100 Cloud, if you're using Sage 100C purchasing module, it'll automatically feed that PO there. If you're not using it, it just keeps it here in our solution. And then you can see all your open POs in the receiving tab here, where you'll have visibility in terms of the open POs. So these e-requester users don't have to be Sage users. You could keep the requisitioners and the approvers out of Sage and use this system as the web front end for all the requests and approvals, feeding those POs over to Sage 100 just for those people that need to have access to Sage for other purposes. And our user licenses are much, more reasonable for web-based requisitioning users. With that all said, that's the introduction to the dashboard area to see all your open transactions. If I want to initiate a request to buy something, I can either utilize a template or I can make a new one from scratch. The templates is a great way to kind of save on data entry if you have a predefined template, things that have been ordered on a recurring basis. So I'll just go ahead here and utilize a template for this example. Every month I like to order my monthly supplies, and I buy the same type of things over and over again from the same vendor. And I could just copy that by clicking the copy button, and that'll clone it into a brand new transaction. So I've successfully copied that transaction. The system has assigned a brand new requisition number, purchase request number, and all the line items that were on my template got automatically replicated into this simple entry screen. And you can see the details here. And if I want to include the quantities for any of the items on this request, I could just put quantities into the quantity field. The cost got pulled from my template, from the standard cost. Of course, if I need to change the cost here, I can. If I hit save at the bottom, it will save just those line items for which I've entered quantity. It will automatically remove any line items that were left at 0. So you see now I'm navigated to what's called the review screen. This is my standard request 6273 that Joe has just created, and it's to this preferred vendor. It's a standard purchase request type from the operations department. So all this data got defaulted from the template, a default comment for the vendor to include their packing slip and their PO number on the packing slip and invoices. And those 3 line items for which I just entered quantity got saved. All the other ones were removed. And this is an $870 requisition. Each line item has been coded by default to a default GL code. So you can see the expense account. If I need to edit any details, I can click on the item. For example, if I click on that hole punch, I can go ahead and modify any of the information. If I wanted to include a job ops work ticket, for example, I can select that and save it on the line item, or any other changes can be made to the transaction. And then you can also add any additional items, even if they were not on the template. You can check against the budget. If you have a budget module hooked up, you can go ahead and see how you're doing against your budget based on GL budgets. It'll turn red and warn you if it's going to put you over budget. Ultimately, you can also attach documentation, scanned or electronic files, PDFs, Word documents, pictures, any kind of attachments that you need to help justify this particular request. I went ahead and just attached a contract from the vendor so that my manager can decide if it's okay for me to purchase this. You could attach multiple quotes. So I went ahead and attached a contract. And then ultimately you can hit continue. There's even a feature to create RFQs. If you want to get some bids from suppliers, you can create requests for quote and send those out. You can save this as a new template if desired. When I hit save and continue, the system is going to calculate the approval workflow. It's going to decide if anyone needs to approve this before you're allowed to spend the money. Because this is $870 from the operations department, because it's a standard purchase request rather than say a CapEx or something else, it has told me it must first go to manager Bob. And then once he approves it, it has to then go to director Jane. And then once she approves it, it's going to go to my purchasing coordinator, Bill. This workflow can be very flexibly set up and dynamically generated based on the parameters of the transaction. If it's over certain thresholds, it goes to so-and-so. And you can even see the explanation here about why it's doing this. It looks at your rules and it says, oh, the request is submitted. It's a standard request. It therefore needs to go through the default approval hierarchy. It's going to go to the level 2 manager, Bob, and then it's going to go to the level 3 approver for the department operations, Jane. It's not CapEx, so that's not relevant. It's not an invoice. It's not services. It's not an invoice. So it goes through all the rules in your rules engine that you get to set up, and then it determines who needs to review this. And now that that's been done, you can add some justification. We are out of these supplies and need to reorder. So you could put some justification. You can then notify people if you want to just alert them, other people. And when you hit save, it will initiate that request for approval. So my request has now been submitted for approval. This monthly supplies request, it's in a status of waiting for Bob Manager to take action. So Joe can log out. He copied a template, put some quantities in, attached some backup, put in some notes, and submitted it for approval. It sends an email to the approver. If I check my email, you'll see, while I just quickly navigate to my Outlook here, you can see at the very top of my email that this guy, Bob, the manager for operations, gets a notification that says, hey, Bob, your approval is required. And the cool thing about the emails is that it even includes the attached backup there. So the user on the road, on the mobile device, can just see the email with all the backup, all the supporting information. And there's even an option here to approve it from the email or reject it. And that would just send the approval or rejection right on into the system from this user. Or he or she can click the link in the email and get to the login screen and log in, and it'll take them to the transaction. If I was on a mobile device, it would be a mobile-friendly interface. This is from my desktop, so it takes me to the full website version. And you could see now, I've logged in as Bob Manager. I used the hyperlink in the email, and he's just looking at this request for these various items for $870. He sees it's over budget because it's warning him. He could look at the details, and he can make a nice intelligent decision. He could say, this is over budget, try again next year. If he wants to be really harsh and just reject it and send it back, he could say something else like, this is fine, if he's a softie like I am, and hit the approve button, in which case it will move it on to the next level. In this case, it would go to the director of finance. She needs to also look at this request. She sees, the manager sees it's approved. it takes him back to his dashboard. It's no longer pending his approval. He still has a utility bill and some other supplies requests waiting for his attention. These were sent to him back in 2018 from various people, but he's going to move on. Those are old and he doesn't worry about those at this time. Meanwhile, the director got a notification by email letting her know that she's got some requests to approve. I've logged in as the director, Jane. She's got 6 transactions currently pending her approval. They're all listed there in her queue, and she could just review and take action as appropriate. Maybe she just checks the box and approves it, or she could log further in and drill down and take more detailed action. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to approve it. She's gone ahead and approved it. And at that point, it either goes to a buyer if you have a centralized purchasing person, or it can go back to the requisitioner, or this person could generate the PO automatically. There's some options there in terms of what happens after a request has been approved. In my company here, in this demo company, I have it going to a guy named Bill, who happens to be my PO coordinator. And as such, he has this Create PO tab, and he can go ahead and take a look at this request. There is a consolidation option if you'd like to consolidate multiple requisitions into a single PO. You can also have multiple vendors that will automatically split the request into separate POs. But in this case, this requisition is approved. There's 3 line items for $870. And this person can see in the history a nice audit trail, a date and time stamp. It was created, it was submitted by Joe, it got approved by the manager who said it was fine, and then the director also approved it without a comment, and I'm the final person in the chain. And you can see down below the contract is attached. You can upload additional documents. If this person needs to make some changes, he can edit it using the edit options. He could send it for more approvals. You can add comments. I am going to create the PO and place the order. So any comments are great. You can ask for more information if you need more details. You can ask for changes to be made by the requisitioner or the prior approvers. You can create an RFQ or a PO. I'll just hit the Create PO button, and that's going to convert that approved purchase request into an approved purchase order. So requisition 6273 has now been assigned PO number 1107, and it'll automatically feed into Sage 100 as a purchase order using the Sage 100 business objects. But in this case, we also have the ability to just view the PO right from the screen. I clicked on the hyperlink there. This is our purchase order document 1107, and that got a header information included. It has ability to put the client's logo, as well as the line item details. You could include the work ticket number if you like on this document, if relevant. The totals, you could see who initiated this, who approved it. And this can also be printed or emailed out right from the system. You could go into Sage 100C and also pull up the PO there if you have access. And I could send this to my supplier right from the system here by putting in his or her email address. You could send the PO with the contract or the quote that was attached, or any of your terms and conditions, or any of your backup. I'll just hit send here, and that will send that PO to my vendor to place the order. Meanwhile, I'll close the window after that. And we have a great audit trail and a history on the whole details of this transaction, showing not only was this request created today about 11 minutes ago, it got submitted about 7 minutes ago by Joe, approved by the manager 9 minutes ago, and then the director 8 minutes ago, and then the PO was cut by the buyer here just about 6 minutes ago, and then PO was emailed out to the vendor by the buyer. So any user with access to this transaction can see this great audit trail where it is in the process. The PO was requested, approved, and ordered, and it all got captured right there in the system. All the backup indefinitely retained in the system. And of course, the PO is in Sage 100 now, so you can go ahead and do your receiving and your invoice matching within Sage 100C. Unless you want to also do some of that within our system, there's some options to also decentralize the receiving, for example, through eRequester here. If the goods come in, you can put in the receiving information and attach the packing slip if that's desired. But that's a little beyond the scope of today's call. I'm glad to follow up with any additional points. There's some great search features and reporting available. In the interest of my colleagues who would like to present their related solutions, I wanted to hand it back over to Adrian and take it from there.
Thank you, Scott. And Stacy will be presenting Sage 100 Production Management. Stacy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Adrian. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a quick overview of the whole production management process. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new work ticket. And within the work ticket, you can go ahead and add whatever item it is that you want to make. You can do the quantity that they're ordering, and it will take into account your yield percentages. You can set it up to auto issue your labor, backflush your labor, manually enter your labor, auto issue materials, backflush materials, or go ahead and manually enter them depending on how you want the systems to set up or to come in initially. We can do a copy from. It's automatically going to default to the bill of materials, which may or may not be what you want to do. You could also do pull the information in from a template, an open work ticket, or a closed work ticket. But I'm going to go ahead and pull in my information from the bill of materials. And when I accept that, it's going to go ahead and fill in the rest of my tabs for me. So if I go into the steps, you can see all the different steps that it pulled in. With the way the system works, if you tell it to, it will explode your subassemblies. So you can see my step numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, but then down here we have 10, 20, 30, 40. The 1, 2, 3s are a subassembly that are in my step 0. So it exploded it automatically into it. We've got our activity code, which is our work center or the operations center for where that activity is being performed. This can be marked as a work order or a change order or a rework. If we scroll over a little bit, you can see what your original budget is for the amount of hours you're expecting, for the labor dollars for those hours, as well as your material budget. And I'm going to go ahead and update my materials budgets for all my steps so I have the information pulled in there from my materials tab that we'll go through in a minute. So you can see right now my labor budget is accessible so that I can go ahead and change it if I need to. Once this work ticket is released, we'll no longer be able to change that original budget, but we'll be able to change our revised budget because the work ticket itself is completely editable all the way through the process. So we can go ahead and go over to our materials, and you can see all my different materials that I've got throughout this work ticket. I can use miscellaneous star or slash parts and have them associated with a specific quantity. I can choose whether or not I want to purchase these materials direct to the job or not. You can see all the different secondary grid information as well for each of the different materials, for what the cost is, etc., for being able to do that cost roll up of the materials onto the totals tab so we know what it's going to take to make this thing. If we go over to the totals tab, you can see what my budget is for my labor, what my budget is for my material, if I have any direct costs, my total costs, as well as my total hours. Once we start putting time in, we'll be able to see the current costs as well as any projected costs based on my current costs, and any projected variances. We can go ahead and we can look at it by the whole job, or we can look at it by individual steps. We can go ahead and accept this, and the way I've got my system set up, it automatically releases it by accepting the whole work ticket. So I can go ahead and preview this work ticket, and the way I've got my traveler set up, it's going to give me all my materials, and if I go to the second page, it's going to give me all my steps. So now this work ticket has been released, and I can go ahead and if I go back into that work ticket, you can see that it's been released. And again, that's a setup feature, so you can decide whether or not you want it to do that or if you manually want to release it. But within the production management product, all you have to do to release it is change the status of the work ticket. We can then go into the work ticket transaction, and this is fully batch compliant, so we can grab a batch, and within the batch itself, we can do our transactions. We'll grab the next transaction number, and now we have the option of doing a completion transaction, closing, labor, or materials. So unlike previously, you no longer have to do the release transaction, so that's not a transaction that's available within here. So if I go ahead and do a material, we can go ahead and grab the work ticket we've been working with, and when we go to the lines, we can go ahead and issue the transactions. Let's grab our batch. And we will add our transaction, grab our work ticket, and we can grab the item. We can choose individual items from our work or from our inventory, or we can go ahead and grab the list of materials from our work ticket. So we can grab whatever item it is that we want to issue. We can tell it how many we want to issue. So we can go ahead and issue 10. If there's other items that we want to issue that weren't on the work ticket, we can go ahead and add those as well. So if we wanted to go in and issue a memory card that wasn't required, we can go ahead and pull it in, tell it what step we want to put it on. And in this particular case, it's a lot tracked item, so we can grab our lot number and pull that in and distribute whatever the quantity is that we want to distribute. Once we have everything ready, we can go ahead and accept it. We can go ahead and we can do additional transactions. So if we want to do a labor transaction, we can grab our work ticket and go ahead and tell it what our labor is, where we're working, and how much of it we want to add in there. We can go ahead and accept it, and then that information's in the transactions to be able to do update our work ticket. We can go ahead and run through the process of printing it, and we can grab our batches. And I'm going to go ahead, let's grab our batch. And it's going to do our normal journal transactions for what our costs were, which accounts it's hitting, etc. All right, so we went ahead and updated all of our costs. We can go ahead and go into transaction entry and grab one of our work tickets. If we go into the material tab, and we can see what's required on the different steps and what we've issued, whether it was required originally and issued, or whether it was initially required and we issued what was required. If we go to the inquiry tab, we can see any status changes that have happened. So if we put in any information about changing the status from new to completed or issued materials, we'll be able to see those transactions as well as the labor, direct costs, purchase orders, and completion. The other way you can go ahead and issue labor is you can go into the labor entry. And this is for the Sage 100C Cloud users. You can go in and create your batch, and you can do your labor entry. You can choose who your employee is that's actually doing the work. What job are they working on? And what step of that job are they working on? Then you can tell it what the start and end times were for that employee. So if I wanted to, I could say that I worked until 2 o'clock, so 1400. It will automatically calculate the hours worked. I can put the time or any notes about the work that's been performed. I can change my status. So if my new status is complete, I can go out and grab that completed status. And these are all status codes that you set up. So we can grab that completed code and we can change the status to I finished this step. And we can, if we want to, we can tell it what quantities were completed through this step. And again, it's not a completion because we're not done with the whole thing, but it is putting the information into the work ticket as far as where it is in the process. So we can go ahead and accept that. If we go into that work ticket then and take a look at that job and go to our inquiry tab and the labor, we can see who's been working on it and what they've done, the cost associated with those hours, as well as any overhead if we choose to have that set up in the system. If we go to the materials, we'll see any materials that have been issued on the job. And again, if we go to the completions, we'll be able to see the completions. And you can look at it by, and I didn't process through the labor, but you can see by individual step or by the completed job what the status is. If we go to the totals, you're going to be able to see what the different costs are so far in this process. And in this case, I completed that step, so the current costs are $5.84. But if I needed to, I could go back to the materials tab and I could add additional materials because it's still editable. So if I go ahead and put in a capacitor, I can grab whichever one I want. I can say for steps, I want it for step 10 and I need 10 of them. And if you need to, you can go ahead and click the PO button for it that you're going to purchase this directly to the step. And if you're going to purchase it, one of the things that you can do once you accept it, so if I accept that and go back into that job, go to the materials, find my capacitor, I can also go ahead and create a PO directly from within here for this particular capacitor for whatever vendor we want to choose. I can go ahead and say accept, and then it created my PO for me. Once I have that PO on there, it's going to be showing down here as a purchase order in our system. I can then go ahead and drill over into that purchase order and see what's on it. Currently we're in PO inquiry, so I can't add to it. But if I was in regular PO, I'd be able to add additional lines into this. And we'll go ahead and do that next. And then I'll wrap up so Patty can get her time in here as well. So let's go ahead and go into PO entry. And if we go to our purchase order, when we go to the line, we can see our job that we have this on. Where's my field? All right. So if we need to add additional materials, we can go ahead and add those into our, there's my work ticket number. So now if I need to add additional parts to it, I can go ahead and add them to the work ticket. So if I want to add a different material, like maybe a board, I can grab that item and say I need 2 of those and go to the work ticket number. It's going to be on our step 1. And when I accept it, it's going to go ahead and link that back to the work ticket. So if we go back into that work ticket, we're now going to have that information that that board is now on our work ticket. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Patty.
Before I talk about us, you can see us on the screen, I'd like to just say to everyone that the solutions you have seen for manufacturing from Barkas Plum, as Stacy presenting, and also the expense management from Fraction, we could actually offset the cost of these enhancements by simply analyzing your statements. I'm going to show you what the level of savings can be, not only because you process with APS, but because of the programs that the card brands have put in place, especially for those of you running business-to-business transactions or business-to-government transactions through Sage 100. It is that simple. You won't have to change your workflow process. We will get you the savings and help you to purchase either or both of these enhancements as soon as you would like to make the switch. So, quick introduction, the hot chick in the white right there centered, that's Patty Benitez, that's me. And APS, we have a fully integrated payment solution for Sage 100. Fully PCI compliant, we're a full service merchant service provider, and our guarantee to match or beat any competitor's price is there for you. If you allow us to audit your statements and we're not able to do so, we will pay you $500 for simply allowing us to provide you a free audit. Now, let me start by explaining how it is that the payment processing affects a lot of people that are using the Sage 100 ERP system currently. Number one, the issue that we hear is that no one really understands their merchant statements. They think they're getting a certain rate, but they're not sure how to confirm it. That is the number one, believe it or not, issue that we run into constantly. And you could see several other bullet points here. I'll talk about a few. One of them that I'd like to highlight is the fact that no one really understands the level 3 processing. I'd like to just let you know that you have to do nothing different. You can continue your existing workflow process and we will handle level 3 processing for you. I'll show you exactly what level 3 entails in a few seconds. The lack of customer support is overwhelming. Many people tell us that they hesitate to switch credit card processors because they don't want to have to go through the hassle, the headaches of not being able to get somebody to support them when they need it. I mean, that's something that across the board, everyone always requires. I, for one, am a consumer and would love to speak to a live human being anytime I call a support line. So, of course, there are several challenges that people encounter, among them also the duplicate entry, which automation is the key here in this presentation. We've all talked about it. With manufacturing, get things automated. Expense management, get things automated. And guess what? With payment processing, you can do the same thing. Now, let's begin by explaining a little bit about the merchant statements and how you can better understand them. This is really important for you to understand because many processors will take advantage of the fact that you could care less which rates you're placed on or your account is placed on. Most of the time, because of convenience, you will be just fine with accepting a flat rate. Well, I have to explain it to you. Flat rates are excellent for very small type of accounts. Very small volume accounts. Why? Because they do not allow you to take advantage of the programs that are put in place by the card brands to lower your rates. Level 3 is one of those programs. If you're on a flat rate contract, let's just say you're getting a rate of 2.85, you're not able to take advantage of level 3. And level 3 can bring the rate down to 1.65 instantly. Tiered pricing, this fee structure is very confusing. Why? Because the processor controls how to qualify each transaction. They have 3 buckets, fully, mid, and not qualified. When we analyze a statement that comes from a processor that is offering a merchant tiered pricing, 99% of the time the transactions are not qualified. And when we ask about the criteria behind the qualification, the merchant doesn't understand what the criteria is. And when they ask the processor doesn't know what it is either. They just kind of put the different transactions in the same non-qualified bracket in order to get the higher rates or to give the higher rates to the merchant. Interchange Plus, the third fee structure you see on the screen, is the most transparent. It basically allows the processor to offer the merchant the hard cost directly from the card brand and then negotiate a markup fee. That is the most straightforward and transparent type of fee structure. And in this case, you can always take advantage of level 3 processing. So again, level 3 in a nutshell is the program that Visa MasterCard put in place. When you accept corporate cards and government cards, they ask you to deliver 13 data fields in order to prove that you're accepting this type of card and that you're a business in the continental US. Once you deliver these fields, the rate goes down instantly. Needless to say, you really won't have time. And again, we're talking about automation. So that's exactly what we have done. We've automated the process. We deliver the fields for you, and we get the guaranteed level 3 rate. Take a look at the screen right now. Remember, when I started the presentation, I told you there's a way for you to offset the cost of the solutions that were presented today. This is how. Allow APS to analyze your statement. Allow us to find you the savings that have been sitting on the table and you were not aware of. This is a true analysis of an actual merchant of ours. Notice how the monthly volume was close to $129,000. We were able to save them almost $1,400 that month. If we average it throughout the year, they would have been saving almost $17,000 that year. And this is not one of the highest numbers. This is average. The highest record-breaking savings that we've been able to provide one of our merchants is $412,000 a year. You heard that correctly. That was a savings, and it was only done through level 3 processing. The merchant had to do nothing different. Now, we talked about the way that you're not able to understand your current statements. The processors do this on purpose. They don't want you to be able to see the detail behind the interchange rates that come from the card brands. In our case, we will provide you with a summary, as you can see it on the screen, but we want to make sure that you understand exactly how and why you're getting the rate that you're getting. And you're also going to be able to go back to the Visa MasterCard website and confirm that the rate that we're giving you is the actual interchange rate that they are offering merchants all over the world. So that's something that we will definitely help with. Another thing that we offer is click-to-pay functionality that is fully embedded into Sage 100. So you're able to process transactions in Sage 100 as you would typically, but you can also allow your customers to pay you using an online payment portal that is accessed through a paperless office invoice that you would send them. Now, we will allow you to choose how to accept payments from your customers, whether it's credit cards or ACH. Level 3 processing applies across the board, no matter where the payments are being applied. We also offer a connection to InstaDocs, which will allow you to attach supporting documents to your sales order or invoice and print out the invoice via click-to-pay. Your customer will receive the supporting documents, the invoice, and pay you the invoice instantly. We accept multi-currency, and for click-to-pay, you can set up a default customer option. It can be opt-in by customer or opt-out, and you can change this at the customer level. Now, this is a very flexible solution. We want to make sure that we tailor the solution to your specific requirements, which is why I'm showing you a little bit about how it works. So, for example, in customer maintenance, you're going to notice this click-to-pay option where you can change the default option, right? So I can make this opt-out by simply checking it off by customer. Credit card processing happens as standard Sage would allow, right within your additional tab. You can enter as many credit cards per customers as you'd like. We follow Sage's guidelines as far as your security settings, so you can always allow the users to edit, add, or delete cards on the fly. And this is on sales order invoice data entry, as well as accounts receivable cash receipts. You can also set up an email address per card. This email address will receive a receipt whenever you complete a transaction for that particular customer. So let's talk about click-to-pay, because this is really what highlights the show today. Click-to-pay allows you to send out paperless office invoices, and what we've done is we've added a Pay Now button to the body of the paperless office invoice. And let me just get that invoice up on the screen here. I apologize, I minimized my screen and I totally forgot how to get back into it. So what I did is I printed out a couple of invoices already, and now let's look at everything from your customer's point of view. Your customer will receive an email with the invoice attached. When they click on the invoice, they will see a standard crystal form, as you can see here. You can customize it, add your logo for brand recognition, and what they'll notice is this click to pay button. When they click on that button, they will be directed to an actual invoice. And let me go back in and just create my invoice again. They will be directed to details regarding the particular invoice that you printed. And at that point, they can make their payment. I'm going to just recreate the invoice once again, maybe a smaller amount, but you'll see how simple it is to create the invoice. I'm really not doing anything out of your standard Sage paperless office workflow, right? When you print your paperless office invoices, you continue to keep the same process. And while this is printing, I'd also like to explain that the features, the functionality, our software is all included at no charge. We provide installation, implementation, training, maintenance, and support. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we provide 24/7 live support. So you are guaranteed a live human being on the other side of the line whenever you contact us. Let me just finish printing here, and we can go back to my Gmail account so you can see what your customer is receiving. So obviously you don't have to print out all of these reports. Okay, let me go back into the Gmail account, and now we're going to see what your customer received. I'm just going to refresh it. And here's the invoice that we just printed out using Paperless Office. So now if they click on the Click to Pay button, they will be able to see details regarding a specific invoice down to the line item detail, and they can make a payment. Now, when they decide to make a payment, they will be given the option to pay the full invoice amount or a custom amount. They can also choose from a list of outstanding invoices. And if they start checking off the invoices, notice how we will auto increment the amount that's the total due. And the same thing will happen when I uncheck them. In this case, I'm going to pay the full balance. I will click continue. I was given the option by the vendor to use my credit card or ACH account. I was also given the option to save my payment method for future use or use a previously saved payment method. The minute I check off the save payment method, I will be prompted to create an account which will give me access to my particular portal where I will be able to see any existing payment methods in the future or add new payment methods. In this case, I'm just going to enter a new card. Now notice how to enter my card, I'm required to fill in 4 fields. If I have used Click to Pay in the past, the fields will be only 3 because the postal code is saved for me. So it's very simple. I keyed it in. I'm going to submit my card. Just as if I was processing within Sage, this is fully PCI compliant. The transaction goes through the APS gateway. The credit card information is tokenized. We are going to verify that all of the information is accurate. If there were any discrepancies, pop-up windows would come up indicating what the discrepancy is, such as the CVV code is not a match, etc. If the transaction went through successfully, they will get a success notification, and you can also set it up so that your customer receives the receipt, a standard type of looking receipt. So you can see as far as the customer is concerned, the payment is made. And now I'd like to just briefly show you how you accept that payment in Sage. So again, it's all about automation, right? You don't have to rekey in any of the information that your customer provided using the Click to Pay. You actually only have to go to your cash receipts deposit, and what we've added is this Click to Pay button. When you click on the button, it will actually pull all of the payments that were made using Click to Pay for that day or prior to any existing update, and it will bring them into cash receipts for you. So you can actually go to your customer and you will be able to see the Click to Pay payments that was completed. At this point, you can continue your standard cash receipts update where all of the relevant modules will be updated, and you will also capture the funds. One thing to add is that if you do batch out by 9 p.m. Eastern time, we will place the funds in your bank account the next morning by 8 a.m. So I wanted to just leave everybody with this screen. A lot of what we're offering is showing on the screen, but I do want to reiterate that if you're interested in obtaining a free audit of your current rates and fees, it's very simple. All you have to do is send me an email with your statements. We will then analyze them, provide you with the cost savings analysis and a full presentation specific to your own company's requirements. Now remember, if we're not able to beat or match any competitor's rates, we will pay you $500 for simply allowing us to audit your statements. And again, if anybody is interested in the solutions that were presented today, allow us, with no strings attached, to provide you with this free audit. The worst case scenario is that you're going to be better prepared to go with any processor and demand the savings that you're entitled to. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to hand it back over to Adrienne.
Thank you, Patty, so much. Reach out to Patricia Garay. Her contact information is right here on the screen. Stacy Schultz at Rackus Blum and Ian Olson over at Fraction. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.